On the night of June 11th, 1962, a prison guard at Alcatraz walked past cell 138, glanced at Frank Morris, sleeping peacefully, and moved on. Except Frank wasn't sleeping. Frank wasn't even Frank. Frank was a head made of soap and toilet paper, wearing real human hair, stolen from the barbershop floor. The actual Frank Morris was somewhere in the freezing black water of San Francisco Bay, paddling a raft made of raincoats. And 64 years later, we still don't know if he made it. That story is number 1 on this list. But to earn it, you need to meet 6 other absolute lunatics first. So let's start with the man who broke out of an escape-proof jail using arts and crafts, and work our way up to the man the FBI is possibly still looking for. Number 7. John Dillinger and the Wooden Gun. The year is 1934, and John Dillinger is the most famous bank robber in America. He's just been caught and locked up in the Crown Point jail in Indiana, and the authorities are feeling extremely good about themselves. They call the place escape-proof. They pose for newspaper photos with him. The sheriff, Lillian Holly, tells reporters she can hold Dillinger just fine. You can probably guess where this is going. While awaiting trial for killing a police officer, Dillinger got hold of a wooden slat, some say from a washboard, and started whittling. Quietly, patiently, like a man doing a craft project. What he carved was the shape of a pistol, and he blackened it with shoe polish. On March 3rd, 1934, Dillinger pointed that piece of painted wood at a guard, and politely informed him that it was a gun. The guard believed him. And then, one by one, Dillinger used his craft project to round up and lock away more than a dozen guards and staff, in the cells they were supposed to be guarding him in. On his way out, he grabbed 2 very real Thompson machine guns, walked into the garage, and stole a car. Not just any car, the sheriff's personal Ford V8. He drove off in the car of the woman who said she could hold him.
What you carving in there, Johnny?
A little gun.
Huh, good one.
It was not a good one. By crossing the state line in a stolen car, Dillinger committed a federal crime, which gave the FBI the green light to hunt him down. 4 months later, he was shot dead outside a movie theater in Chicago. The wooden gun, meanwhile, survived. It's still on display in Indiana today, and historians still argue about exactly what it was made of. Which means a piece of shoe-polished wood has officially outlived everyone in the story. Number 6. Pascal Payet, frequent flyer. Most prisoners look at the walls. Pascal Payet, a French armored truck robber, looked up. In 2001, while serving 30 years, a hijacked helicopter dropped onto the prison of Louin in southern France, picked him up and flew away. Authorities launched a massive manhunt. Standard stuff so far. Here's where it stops being standard. 2 years later, while still a fugitive, while every police officer in France was looking for him, Payet hijacked another helicopter and flew back to the same prison. Not to turn himself in, to break out 3 of his friends. The man treated a maximum security prison like a drive-thru. He was eventually caught and given extra years, and France started moving him from prison to prison to keep him unpredictable. They ended up at the prison of Grasse. And on July 14th, 2007, Bastille Day, while the whole country was busy celebrating, 4 masked men hijacked a helicopter from the Cannes airport, landed it on the prison roof, cut through the doors with angle grinders, and flew Pascal Payet away for the second time. The helicopter was found abandoned nearby. Payet was found 2 months later in Spain, after surgery to change his appearance. Today he is reportedly transferred to a new prison every few months, and French prisons now string anti-helicopter cables above their yards. Partially because of one man who refused to use doors. Number 5. The Maze Breakout. Northern Ireland, September 25th, 1983. The Maze was considered one of the most escape-proof prisons in Europe. H-shaped concrete blocks, 15-foot fences, armed watchtowers, the works. Inside H Block 7 were 38 IRA prisoners, and over months, piece by piece, 6 handguns had been smuggled into them. Just after lunch, in a matter of minutes, the prisoners pulled the guns and took over the entire block. Guards were tied up. Some had their uniforms taken. And then came the genuinely cinematic part. The daily food delivery truck rolled in, right on schedule. The prisoners hijacked it, loaded all 38 men inside, and simply drove toward the main gate of the most secure prison in Europe. At the gate, it all went loud. Fights broke out with the guards. Shots were fired. One officer was stabbed and died of a heart attack during the chaos. The truck was abandoned, and the prisoners went over the fence on foot. 35 of them made it out of the perimeter. It remains the biggest prison escape in British history. About half were caught within days. Some of the rest were never brought back at all. The British government opened an official inquiry which concluded, among other things, that maybe the prison shouldn't have let the inmates run the workshops, the laundry, and apparently the schedule of the food truck. Number 4. The Great Escape, the real one. Stalag Luft III, Nazi Germany, 1945. This camp was purpose-built to be tunnel-proof. The huts were raised off the ground so guards could see under them. The ground was bright yellow sand that would instantly show up on anyone's clothes. There were microphones buried around the perimeter, specifically to hear digging. The Germans thought of everything, so 600 Allied prisoners of war decided to dig 3 tunnels at the same time, and named them Tom, Dick, and Harry, so the guards would never hear the word tunnel spoken out loud. I need you to understand how insane the engineering was. Harry, the tunnel that worked, ran 102 meters. 9 meters underground. Deeper than a 2-story house is tall. It had electric lighting wired from the camp's own power. It had a wooden railway with a rolling trolley because the tunnel was too long to crawl. It had an air pumping station built from kit bags, hockey sticks, and powdered milk cans. The bright yellow sand was hidden by prisoners who walked the yard with pouches inside their trousers, releasing it slowly as they strolled. These men were called penguins. None of this is made up. There were over 200 penguins. On the night of March 24th, 1944, the prisoners opened the far end of Harry and discovered a small engineering problem. The tunnel came up just short of the tree line, in full view of a guard tower, which is the engineering equivalent of a typo, except the typo can shoot you. They went anyway. 76 men crawled out one by one into the snow, before guard number 77 was spotted at dawn. And this is where the story goes quiet. Of the 76, 73 were recaptured. 50 of them were executed by the Gestapo on direct orders from Hitler. 3 men, 2 Norwegians and a Dutchman, made it all the way home. The movie version added a motorcycle jump. The real version had no motorcycles. Just shovels made of bedboards, and more nerve than almost anyone has ever had. Number 3. El Chapo and the most expensive shower in history. Mexico, 2015. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the most powerful drug lord on the planet, sits in Altiplano, Mexico's most secure federal prison. He has already escaped one prison before, allegedly in a laundry cart, so this time the authorities are taking 0 chances. Camera in the cell, watching him around the clock. The camera has exactly one blind spot, required for privacy, the shower. You already know where this is going. What you don't know is the scale. His organization bought a small house under construction, a mile away, across open fields. From that house, engineers dug a tunnel 1.5 kilometers long, 10 meters underground, with electric lighting, ventilation pipes, and rails. On those rails, they mounted a modified motorcycle to haul out dirt and eventually to haul one very important passenger. Using what must have been frighteningly good GPS work, the tunnel traveled that entire mile and surfaced inside a 50 by 50 centimeter hole, directly under the one camera blind spot in his shower.
Boss, the tunnel's ready. Light and ventilation. A motorcycle under rails.
A motorcycle? I asked for a tunnel, not a theme park.
Sir, respectfully, we do not do simple.
On July 11th, 2015, El Chapo stepped into his shower, dropped through the floor, rode a motorcycle a mile underground, and came up in a half-built house. By the time anyone checked the cell, he was gone. The escape took years of planning and a reported budget in the millions, all of it ending at a shower drain. He was free for 6 months. Then he made the very cartel boss decision to plan a movie about his own life, and invited actors and journalists to come interview him in hiding. The authorities followed the trail. He was recaptured in January 2016, extradited to the United States, and now lives in a Supermax prison in Colorado, where I can only assume someone checks the shower floor with a flashlight every single morning. Number 2. Yoshi Shiratori, the man no prison could hold. Japan, 1936. Yoshie Shiratori is arrested for murder, a charge he denied, and thrown into Aomori Prison. And over the next 11 years, this one man went on the greatest escape run in recorded history. 4 prisons, 4 escapes, each one more ridiculous than the last. Escape 1, Aomori. He studied the guard patrols every night until he knew the exact gaps in their rounds, picked his cell lock with a piece of wire from a wash bucket, and walked out. He was recaptured and given a life sentence. Escape 2, Akita Prison, 1942. His new cell had smooth walls, too high to climb, with one tiny skylight in the ceiling. So every single night, in the dark, he climbed the corner of the cell, bracing himself like a rock climber, and loosened the skylight frame a little more. Then one rainy night, he went up the wall and out through the roof. Recaptured again, and this time the authorities were done playing. They sent him to Abashiri Prison, the coldest, most brutal prison in Japan, and had special handcuffs made for him that could not be unlocked, only cut off. His food came through a small slot in the door. No tools, no wire, no skylight. Just a man, his handcuffs, and his daily bowl of miso soup. So Yoshie Shiratori began pouring his soup over his handcuffs and the door's hinge slot. Every day, for months. Because miso soup is salty and salt rusts metal. I'm not making this up. The salt from his soup slowly corroded the cuffs and the metal around the food slot. And one night in 1944, during a wartime blackout, he snapped the rusted cuffs, dislocated both of his own shoulders, and squeezed his entire body out through the food slot. A grown man. Through the slot they pushed his dinner through. There is a museum at Abashiri Prison today with a mannequin of him doing it, because no one would believe it otherwise. After years on the run, he killed a farmer in what he claimed was self-defense, and was sentenced to death. Which brings us to Escape 4, Sapporo, 1947, where a man on death row dug under the floorboards of his cell using a food bowl, and vanished, again. And then comes the strangest part of the whole story. In 1948, a police officer in a park noticed a tired drifter sitting on a bench, and instead of arresting him, offered him a cigarette and some kindness. And Yoshie Shiratori, the man 4 prisons couldn't hold, looked at this one act of decency and turned himself in, voluntarily. The court later ruled the killing had indeed been self-defense, threw out his death sentence, and years later he walked out of prison legally, through the front door. The man was unstoppable through steel and concrete, and was defeated by one cigarette. Number 1. Alcatraz, 1962. Back to the soap head. Alcatraz wasn't just a prison, it was a statement. A rock in the middle of San Francisco Bay, surrounded by water cold enough to kill you, and currents strong enough to drag you out under the Golden Gate. 36 men tried to escape over the years. Officially, none ever made it. Officially. Frank Morris had an IQ of 133 and a resume of escapes. The Anglin brothers, John and Clarence, were bank robbers, and crucially, former swimmers. Together with the 4th man, Alan West, they noticed something interesting. The concrete around the air vents in their cells was old, damp, and crumbling. For over a year they dug at those vents with sharpened spoons, stolen from the cafeteria, and a homemade drill built from a vacuum cleaner motor, timing the loud work to music hour. They hid the growing holes behind painted cardboard panels. Behind the cells ran an unguarded utility corridor, and from there they climbed to the top of the cell block, where they set up a secret workshop on top of their own prison. In that workshop, they built a raft out of more than 50 stolen raincoats, heat sealing the seams on the prison's steam pipes. Life vest, same method, paddles from scrap plywood. The raft was designed to be inflated with a modified concertina. That's an accordion. They planned to inflate their getaway vehicle with a musical instrument. And to buy themselves a full night's head start, they spent months building dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and cement powder, painted skin tone, with real human hair collected from the barbershop. On the night of June 11th, 1962, they tucked the heads into their beds, climbed through the holes, went up to the roof, down a kitchen vent pipe, over the fence and into the bay. Guards walked past their cells all night and said nothing. The heads were that good. Alan West, the 4th man, spent that night frantically clawing at his vent, because the cement he'd used to disguise the hole had hardened it shut. By the time he got through, the others were gone. He helped plan one of the greatest escapes in history, and missed the bus. Imagine being Alan West. The next morning, Alcatraz counted 3 empty beds and 2 very embarrassed soap heads. The search found paddle fragments, raft pieces, and a waterproof bag of personal letters. But no men, no bodies, nothing. The FBI investigated for 17 years and concluded they most likely drowned. The US Marshals, however, never closed the case. It is still open today. And then, in 2013, San Francisco police received a letter. It read, "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962. I'm 83 years old and in bad health. If I get medical care, I'll tell you where I am." The FBI analyzed the handwriting and the DNA. The results came back inconclusive. The Anglin family, meanwhile, swears the brothers survived and has shown a photograph, allegedly taken in Brazil in 1975, of 2 men who look suspiciously like John and Clarence. Maybe they drowned in the bay that night. That's the sensible answer. But the case is still open. The letter was never explained, and if Frank Morris is somehow alive out there, he'd be in his late 90s, possibly watching videos exactly like this one. If that's you, Frank, incredible work. Please don't escape from the retirement home. So what did we learn today? Prisons are designed to stop normal people. They are apparently useless against anyone armed with a spoon, a soup bowl, a helicopter, or an accordion. There are at least 20 more escapes this insane that didn't fit in this video, including 7 men in Texas who escaped through the maintenance department and went on a crime spree. So if you want a part 2, you know exactly what to do. Subscribe, check your shower for tunnels, and I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.